That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about It Lives Inside, the directorial debut of Bishal Dutta, which premiered at the 2023 South by Southwest Film Festival. Neon is releasing it September 22nd, 2023.
Directorial debut. The story, an Indian American teenager struggling with her cultural identity has a falling out with her former best friend and, in the process, unwittingly releases a demonic entity that grows stronger by feeding on her loneliness. My pull quote for this film is, I was into this film until Pishach flipped the vegan poo-poo platter like a real housewife of New Jersey.
Mine is an homage to Tolstoy.
Oh boy.
Every unhappy demon is unhappy in its own way. But all PG-13 demon movies are like, no matter their cultural origins.
Yeah, I thought this movie was okay.
I think the first hour is strong enough to be interesting and keep your attention, and then it gets kind of
Silly.
It gets to be it's all hooey.
Yeah, the final act undermines the first hour, I thought. But the Indian American teenager, her name is Samita, played by
Megan Suri, who had a supporting role in Missing opposite Nia Long earlier this year.
Oh, was she the friend of old girl? Wow. So I liked her. It's made very clear that she's struggling with her cultural identity as an Indian American. We see her like being very particular about how she looks. She wants to be called Sam, not Samita. We see that there is some sort of like celebration called a puja that's happening, and her mom is asking her to help her prepare some dish.
Prasad, which is like for an offering for the gods kind of food.
And Samita is kind of like trying to blow it off. So there's another young lady named Tamira,
played by Mohana Krishnan, who I believe this is her debut.
and we find out that they sort of grew up together, but at a point their paths sort of diverged because Samita's trying to distance herself from her culture, it would seem. But Tamira's been acting real strange. She's walking around school looking like the girl from The Ring. She's holding on to this like glass mason jar, looking all dirty and musty. We're told she's eating, well, we see her eating under like the bleachers. So at a point, Tamira approaches Samita like, I need your help. Well, what's going on, girl? Well, there's like a demon in this jar.
I think she says it's a monster.
A monster. I have to feed it, but it's not working. And Samita goes, you're an effing psycho, and knocks the jar out of her hand.
She bops that mason jar.
And it breaks to the ground, and we see this black cloud escape. And that's where the trouble gets worse, because now Samita is sort of sensing that there's this like entity around her. She has this little white boyfriend of hers, Russ.
Played by Gage Marsh, with his 90s center part.
Who ends up getting killed because Samita's mom, played by
Neeru Bajwa.
she is really, it seems like she's kind of disappointed in her daughter, that she's not really sort of
Neeru Bajwa, sorry.
like as aware of her culture as she wants her to be. But the mom knows all about this demon, because eventually Samita tells her about it. And the mom tells her the name of the demon, that it feeds off negative energy, that like it will harm those around you who are trying to help you. So that's why it ends up killing Russ.
And she also has that moment in the trailer where she's like, how do I find, what's the word for, he tenderizes the soul.
Yeah, the mom knows all about this demon. And we can get into the details, but she basically teaches her daughter this chant and says like, you have to do it with another person. It can't just be you. And you do the chant, and you can banish this thing into a vessel. And so a vessel could be like a jar or a box, or in old-timey times, shamans would receive the spirit.
In their body.
In their actual body. So everything culminates with Samita and Tamira in the basement of a house, and we'll get to whose house it is, but they start chanting. The spirit wants to sort of go into something, but it breaks the jar. So Samita has the bright idea, because she remembers that the shamans would receive them, that she lets the demon occupy her body. So we flash forward a year, and we see that all's well that ends well, and everyone involved, like Samita, her mom, her dad, Tamira, a teacher who helps Samita, who we can talk about.
Joyce Dixon.
They're all sitting at the dinner table saying a prayer, and then we see that Samita has to eat raw meat to keep the spirit at bay. The end.
Well, the very final shot is, it seems like the demon's given her tummy trouble, and tears come to her eyes.
Yeah, like she has acid reflux from Pishach. So where to begin?
I guess that demon is actually mentioned in the Mahabharata, the epic Indian poem.
Oh. Okay, I'm just going to go through my notes. So Samita's mom is superstitious. Like straight out the gate, we're told that she is, because she does something at the breakfast table and the mom goes, no, don't do that, because...
She whistles.
Mm-hmm. And it's like, damn, she can't even whistle?
Like, you're going to call a demon. It's like, okay.
But I want to start with the feeling that I was saying, or what we were talking about earlier today, is that I feel like as time goes on, like in the modern era, it's getting harder and harder, at least for me as a moviegoer. Like these stories about like spirits and things set in like modern time, it just gets more and more ridiculous, because you think like, okay, Samita's mom, who's stunningly gorgeous, but probably like a 40-year-old, right?
She's 42, yeah.
I mean, she looks like she could be Samita's sister, but...
She looks too young to have her, really.
But well, whatever. She's like, let's say she's 40. A 40-year-old in 2023. So this woman is younger than I am. And it just feels like it's getting harder for me to believe that people of a particular age in 2023 know all about this, like, these fables and legends and mystical things.
I mean, this is a faith-based horror film, really.
And I know there are many, many movies like it with like a specific demon that is relegated to a specific culture. So it's not impossible that people know about it. I just think, as for someone like me, it's getting harder and harder to suspend disbelief, because another character in the film is Samita's teacher, who they're calling Joyce.
Joyce Dixon.
I didn't know that we were calling teachers by their first names.
I think that was supposed to imply that Samita is like her favorite. Like they have a bond outside of the class.
I didn't like that she's calling her by her first name.
But of course, she's played by Betty Gabriel, who you should recognize from Get Out.
Oh, I did recognize her, and I liked her character.
I liked her character a lot, and the emotional, the anxiety that I was feeling were primarily in her sequences.
Yeah, and Joyce, that character of the teacher, that's how I felt like the teacher should have been in that movie, Talk to Me.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So I did like the character.
Talk to Me, or you mean Cobweb?
Cobweb.
Cleopatra Coleman.
Yeah. So that teacher is trying to help Samita, but Samita's being like a difficult teenager, thinking she can take care of everything on her own. But at a point, there's a book. So where did this demon come from? There was another Indian family, not Samita's, not Tamira's.
The Chowdhuries.
The Chowdhuries. And they had a son, like a teenage son, who all of a sudden started acting weird like Tamira and ended up, they thought, killing himself.
And his parents were found mutilated.
But apparently he had kept a book, and Tamira found that book, and that's how she ended up being introduced to the demon, and now the demon's haunting her. But now Samita has the book, and within the book there's information, like a chant. There is the number 7 written all over, which we come to find out means that after the demon latches onto you, it will keep you alive for 7 days until it eats your soul. And another thing we find is there's like a sketch drawing of the demon. So getting back to her teacher, Joyce, Samita is like, calls her teacher and says, well, I found this picture, or she talks to the teacher and is like, yeah, there's this image.
The image is actually a very creepy looking mural that's on the inside of the Chowdhury's home, which lies abandoned.
Yes, and Samita's like, I couldn't find any info, so she asked her teacher, can you find info? And then the next scene is the teacher saying, oh yeah, I figured out what it is, it's this. And so getting back to like modern time, I think it's just getting harder for me to believe that like this teenage girl in 2023 didn't know how to do like a Google image search, that this very young looking mother knows every little detail about this like legendary demon.
Yes, and then the teacher, like what access does the teacher have? Is it like a periodical you need a university account to search for, like JSTOR, or...
So...
Because that's what we see Betty Gabriel looking at is something like you can see on Wikipedia.
So a major theme in the film is about, I think, like cultural identity, ethnic identity, and this young lady trying to maybe run away from it, which I think is a very complex topic because, there's a positive feedback loop sometimes, right? Like, oh, me as a person of color, I've learned that behaving a certain way in certain circles benefits me. And so then, it starts to become like, well, maybe I should act like that instead.
Code switching. Yeah.
Yeah. So we see that in Samita, but I think I don't know that I love the way it's done because she seems kind of contradictory. Like she doesn't want to be involved in it. She distances herself from it. But then there's a moment when her little boyfriend, Russ, asks her about something, like going out on Saturday night. And she goes, I can't. I have to help my mom with puja.
Mm-hmm. Durga Puja.
And he's like, well, what is that? And she gives this long explanation about like this God and this and that. And to me, I thought a girl like her would probably say like, oh,
it's something dumb my parents
It's just some dumb holiday my parents, or make it even more simple, like it's an Indian holiday or something. So I don't know. I'm going to get to what I think the better story would have been. But continuing with this.
Yeah, I think it misses the ball on constructing the white element as a juxtaposition to, say, Betty Gabriel and Tamira and Samita and her parents, because we get like various microaggressions. She's got some little white girlfriend that says it's not fair that you're so good at calculus and it comes so easy for you, and is kind of,
or she wants to take video of her speaking Hindi.
And says it wrong first, like speak Hindu for me, and then also of course the boyfriend implying that you're nothing like Tamira, as in you're less ethnic than.
Yeah, it was like it had double meaning because it's like, oh, you mean like less ethnic or you mean like less crazy?
Mm-hmm.
Which one are you talking about?
Well, in both, and that's also the time where he decides to kiss her without asking.
Yeah. But again, getting back to this struggle of her identity, there's a moment which I thought was actually very interesting, and I wish we would have expounded on it, is the mom is sort of expressing her frustration in her daughter and not accepting her culture more, but then also complaining about like living in this predominantly white neighborhood. And then Samita asked her mom, then why did we even come here?
Right.
If you're so hell-bent on, occupying this, like, you're so attached to your culture and everything has to be about it, why did you even come here? Why didn't we stay where we were?
Right. And then she also demeans her mother by saying, you came here just to be a housewife and cook and clean.
Yeah. So I thought that was very interesting, and then we kind of just let that go.
Mm-hmm. And then clearly there's also, something interesting that we don't explore enough is the difference between the mom and the dad, because the dad feels much closer to Samita and doesn't seem to maybe share the same beliefs.
Right, yeah. It seems like the dad's also trying to distance himself from that, and we don't really get a lot on that. I do think the character of Samita is well done, because I did get this, like, it felt very authentic to me that she is kind of easily embarrassed. Mm-hmm. She's also frustrating in that way teenagers are, where they think they can figure everything out. There's a moment when she tells her mom, like, she believes in the demon, like Samita does, and her mom's begging her, please tell me what's going on. And Samita tells her mom, you won't understand.
Like, of all the people that we've seen in this movie, your mother probably does.
Of anyone in your life, this is the one person who, the film opens with her establishing how she believes in these kind of things.
Right. But then again, as a teenager, you don't really want to tell your parents things. And I also responded to, I think, the crafting of Samita as a character, especially as an other in high school, and how they lump you or compare you to the others. Yeah. And how you do try to assimilate, and because it's easier to do so. But
yeah.
It also reminded me of the Korean girls in Joyride, which premiered at the same film festival, and this is like the inverse, because those two stuck together and were able to kind of craft a happy friendship together that had different areas of dysfunction, but this seems to me more the common way that human behavior becomes in this situation.
I know that teacher Joyce was not getting paid enough to deal with this.
No.
We need to pay teachers more, and they still don't need to be dealing with demons.
And what a good teacher, because you can tell that she thinks there's something really wrong with Samita, and talking about demons and monsters, she placates her and she's like, okay, I'm gonna help you.
Well, another interesting scene that the film I feel like could have expanded on more is that Joyce, the teacher, is asking Samita about Tamira. Mm-hmm. Like, what's up with your girl Tamira? And Samita's like, well, why do you think I would know? And it's kind of one of those things like, oh, do you think all Indian people know each other? And the teacher's like, no, bitch, because y'all were like best of friends. Like, you don't talk to her. I thought that was an interesting moment. Like, Samita's reaction to this black lady teacher is almost like, oh, you want to clump us all together. But it's like, well, no, I see you, and I see that you two were close, and now you just left your girl out to dry. I thought that was a very interesting moment that could have kept going.
And yes, and then because she says in that scene, I think more than once, like, we have to look out for each other.
And then she says, yeah, we have to look out for each other, which I think had a double meaning as well. Like maybe as people of color, as women, as students in this school, like we need to look out for each other. And Samita's not picking up what she's dropping.
No, she wants that handsome little white boyfriend.
Okay. So when Samita finally tells her mom about what's going on, and the mom tells her all about this demon, Samita's like, we have to do something. And the mom's like, okay, well, first step, the mom just gets up and starts going in the pantry. And it's already been established that the demon wants meat, like flesh. And the mom gets up and starts grabbing rice and whatever else, dried things. And she goes, well, we don't have any meat, but we need to make it an offering. So they proceed in kind of what I thought was a schmaltzy montage of making this fabulous looking vegetarian buffet.
To lure the demon there.
And it's gorgeous. The food looks delicious.
I know, I leaned over and said, am I a demon? Because that would lure me.
Yeah, that would convince me. Child, the minute that demon walks in and sees that food, he flipped that table.
Yes.
That's where my pull quote comes from. That just seems so pointless. Like if this woman who knows all about this demon and knows that it needs an offering of flesh, why did they spend all this time making this food? We see them like stirring the pot and
making some sag paneer.
Because I feel like that scene was supposed to establish that because the mom and daughter had distance between them, that now they're working together. But it just didn't make sense. Like, in all that time it took them to make that very tasty looking dinner table, y'all could have ran to the grocery store.
It needs to be like in Drag Me to Hell when they go outside and just grab a random kitty or something. And
yes. I don't understand why they just didn't run to the store and get some meat. Because in the end of the film, when we see them feeding Samita, it looks like they just took raw liver parts from the grocery store and dumped it on us. It looked like chicken gizzards that they dumped on a plate.
You can't like brown this just a little for me.
When we got to that part of the film, that's when I kind of checked out.
I agree, but some of the production design I think is pretty good. I think there are one too many scenes where Samita's having nightmares. And it's like, oh, okay.
And she's screaming.
And it's like, okay, you only really need one of those. But in the best instance of that, where it's clear that this demon is following her, it's in her closet, and you just see the glowing eyes.
That was very effective.
Which is very, like, to me, the only really terrifying part of the original Amityville Horror, when Margot Kidder sees those eyes out in the darkness.
I wrote down that we see just enough of that demon... ... because at the end I think we see too much. But I think the way the demon's presented for a good part of the film is very effective, especially with the teacher Joyce.
That's the best scene of the film. When
it's chasing her in the school. And there's a moment when she's in the bathroom. It's also kind of confusing to me how the demon operates.
Because the demon kills Russ in the middle of the day.
In bright sunlight.
But then is playing this game with the teacher when the lights are off, it gets closer.
But then when lights are on, it disappears. So it's like, is the demon playing with her?
I guess so.
Or is it afraid of the light?
But it was an effective scene and also an inverse of what we usually see, like horror films set in a school where the lights are going off in the hallway one by one.
Yeah, this one's getting
it's the
brighter.
Opposite, yeah.
But I did think it was funny because I kept thinking, girl, leave those lights on. Because she kept turning the lights off. Like, bitch, you better keep that light on and run out the bathroom. Yeah.
Well, she didn't quite believe yet.
No, she didn't.
But that part was the most anxiety-driven.
So, yeah, the visuals of the demon were very good. Up until the end, we actually see it, like, full on. And I thought, you had thoughts. I thought it looked like if you mixed Godzilla with a shrimp.
Oh, God. I kept thinking the alien-human hybrid and Alien Resurrection mixed with Cronenberg's Naked Lunch Creatures.
I also thought it was funny. I wrote down, this is a slapping demon. Because that demon slapped like 6 people. He was pimp slapping everybody in this movie. Mm-hmm. That made me laugh. My final thought about the actual story is So we're told 7 days. Tamita's been missing.
She's buried the ring.
She looked like she smelled when we first met her ass, and then now she's been missing for days.
And dehydrated.
And she's dehydrated. The first thing she asked for is water, so we know she's dehydrated. And she's in this basement in a tub with like...
In the Chowdhury house.
Looking like she's covered in a potato sack. And when Samita finds her and lifts up that sack, I thought it was kind of unbelievable that she didn't react to her. Like, ooh, you smell terrible, or you look terrible. That kind of sent me a little bit too. Like,
well, also, I didn't understand. I wanted at least a conversation that's like, okay, the demon's in your body now. It has to stay there. Like, I can't throw this out. We can't go to somebody and have them extricated and put it in a jar. Like, I just have to live with this forever.
Also,
and a whole year passes. Like, wouldn't we have that conversation like a week after the dust settles?
Yeah, well, we'll get to what I think the better story would be. But I think also the fact that all it took was a chant. And then I couldn't help but think of Madonna's song,
Shanti Shanti.
Shanti Ashanti. Like, y'all could have just played that record on repeat and the demon would have stayed where it was. It was too easy to, like, banish the demon.
I agree, yes. And again, I think there's something more potent that would elevate this, something along the lines of, again, the Babadook, which I'm assuming is what you're going to say about kind of the racial, ethnic... subtext going on could have really been strengthened to be something kind of powerful.
Yeah, so I think the better story would have been, because we're told this demon feeds off negative energy. The IMDb premise says it feeds off of loneliness, but in the movie it's negative energy.
Well, I guess that explains how it got Tamira.
Right, but what if we have this Indian girl, this teenager in high school who is kind of a mean girl and also like tries to distance herself from her ethnic culture? So somehow she gets in contact with this demon because maybe the other Indian girl in school who she kind of bullied, like somehow it transferred to her.
Like the craft?
And then we see that she is acting weird and doing all these things that are really jeopardizing her image. And so the community, like all these other white people, are just chalking it up to like, oh, that crazy ethnic girl and their weird beliefs. See what they're doing. I think it should have been that. And then we really could have played with these themes of the cultural differences and people being outsiders. Because as it is, we do get a scene after Russ dies where we see Samita with her parents, so this Indian family, and then we see a row of white people looking at them, shaking their heads. Mm-hmm. But I didn't think that was fair because, first of all, this young man died right in front of you and you're refusing to tell anyone what happened. Mm-hmm. And then before that, the other little Indian girl at school went missing and you were the last person to see her and you wouldn't talk about that either. So I don't think these people are shaking their head at you because you're the Indian family in town. They're shaking their head at you because you won't talk about what happened. So I feel like it didn't feel elevated enough to really get me with these racial ethnic differences.
I agree. Yeah.
I would have preferred that because then the final act with just this straight up demon standing there and they're just chanting at it.
I
didn't need that.
It could have been a lot more subversive about the toxicity of assimilation.
Yes.
And I think the tagline should have been, there's a demon in my body, you got to rub me the right way.
Oh. That being said, I do think it's worth a watch. There are so many movies that I can think of that are similar with like a specific demon that has a name and an agenda, and we have to figure out and learn about it and then disarm it. Mm-hmm. So in keeping with those, this feels fresh enough. So I would say it's worth a watch.
Yeah, I agree. It's fresh enough.
What would you give it? I
would give it 2.5.
I would give it 2.5 out of 5 as well. Anything else?
No.
Hit the thanks button. Listen to our podcast. Bye.